Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner, Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. And Patrick, it is our favorite time of the week. It is mailbag time. Uh, Not as angsty as last week. They're not coming off a sweep of the Giants or being swept by the Giants. So not as angry, not as frustrated. But there are plenty of questions. Let's kick it off with our guy Tyler Dershel. Is the plan for Cade Horton to have more runway come playoff time to pitch deeper into games, especially with some of the bullpen struggles of late? Um, you know, you know what? I want to touch on the bullpen struggles first. Bullpen struggles happen like this. I think they have a pretty solid bullpen. This is on the offense, in my opinion. This happened in 23. Your offense isn't playing enough games where they're allowing rest for Keller and Palencia and Kittredge and Pomerantz and Thielbar. You got to rest those guys. You can't pitch them as much as they've been pitched over the past 2 weeks ish or however long it's been that they've played these close games. You almost prefer that they get blown out. Even the game where they were blowing out, was it Colorado or was it the Angels? One of those games they were kicking some butt, and then they gave up a bunch of runs, and that
in Colorado, I think first game in Colorado, it's like they have a big lead, gives them back, and then all of a sudden you're using your A relievers in a game where you thought maybe you could use some of your lower leverage guys and get to 27 outs, and that did not happen.
Yeah, but with regards to Cade Horton, I think that's the whole plan. at minimum, the plan is make sure he's available for October. Fully unleash him. I guess we'll see. I haven't heard that directly. Have you heard that directly, Patrick? That it could be like no holds barred, like no restrictions.
I think I like where Tyler's head is at, as always. I think it's, if I'm looking at the exact phrasing here, I don't know if it's to have more runway. It is to have runway come playoff time, meaning they want him available. They want him to be a difference maker, but I just don't know how many pitchers out there in modern baseball in October are going to get, say, 3 times through a lineup or pitch into the 8th inning. In speaking with Counsell last weekend in Colorado, it was a good refresher of, we're assuming the Cubs are going to be in a 3-game playoff series, and the result of game 1 totally dictates who pitches game 2, and it'll be all hands on deck, best pitchers available. And with these off days in the playoff schedule, it gives you a little more flexibility. We'll get into some other pitchers towards the end of this mailbag, but just for example, like Jameson Taillon, like maybe he's not starting a playoff game in round 1, assuming he's healthy, but maybe he gives you a couple of innings, or you find the pockets, as managers like to say, in the opposing lineup. Like, I think it's, yes, you want Cade Horton healthy and dealing and starting a playoff game in October, but a good playoff start in October, honestly, could be like 4 1/3 inning, 1 run given up, and you hand it over to the rest of your pitching plan. And that's, I'm not being sarcastic, like that. Like, that's kind of how these games work if you watch them on TV in October.
Yeah, we're approaching, he's almost 100 innings over last season. Again, we've said this over and over on the podcast. It's not just innings that they're looking at, but that's the quick and easy way for us to kind of look at this. He's at 103 2/3 for his big league season, and then add in 29 at AAA. But these numbers are insane. 2.78 ERA for this guy in 103 2/3 innings. Really impressive. And there's no doubt you want him fresh and ready to go in the postseason, because he's going to be just a huge part of this team. I don't think any of us deny that. We talked about it a lot in the last episode, but he's he's really important to this team right now, and I think we're all a little surprised at how important he's become. Maybe we came into this season thinking like, oh, potential X factor, oh, maybe he'll help them as a reliever or something like that. No, he's one of their best starters and really important to their success. All right, here's a question on Ian Happ. Is it time the Cubs move Happ back into the everyday leadoff spot, given recent performance, to help solidify a lineup heading into a potential playoff push? That's from the Lizard King. Patrick, my quick answer about moving Happ right now, it's like he's playing well. He's getting results. I don't know if you want to keep shifting the lineup around. Like I'm not sure if I'm not going to go look up the leadoff stats. My guess is they're not great. I know Michael Busch hasn't been great in the leadoff spot. I think Nico's been okay. But the bottom line is like Kyle Tucker, PCA need to hit. That's the problem with the lineup. I don't think it's really the leadoff spot. You get those guys going, you feel better about everything. And I mean, Kyle Tucker is going. He's injured. That's the question is whether he's healthy or not now. He got hot. Things started to look a little bit better. You get PCA hot as well. I'm not worried about leadoff spot. Just get your stars playing well. I get the question. I'm not sure if you want to keep moving things around. Like he's moved it around so much. Are we? Maybe that's fine. I'm not sure if you want to just keep switching lead off. Okay, Ian Happ's back there. I don't think it's the worst idea. I also just don't know if that solves much.
I think it's more of Ian Happ sort of answering back after the why won't they play Owen Casey debate and looking at certain spots of if you need a spark, change things up. And Happ is sort of once again doing Happ things of getting on a hot streak, boosting his overall numbers. We can get into this soon, but he's a big expected numbers guy and underlying data guy. I know that doesn't always play well with the fans, but if you look at the track record, he winds up being a solidly above average major league hitter almost every year.
Yeah, let's get into our DraftKings player spotlight and talk about Ian Happ. All right, Patrick. Our player spotlight for DraftKings is Ian Happ. He's been really good for a while now. I was looking at the numbers. It's actually like almost 2 months since like just before the All-Star break, he has a 141 weighted runs created plus. But if you want to do a little shorter, like since August 17th, it's a 192 weighted runs created plus. He's like the results are finally coming. I joked. You can talk a little bit more about this because I wasn't on the road. I think I saw the clip, but he was talking about things weren't falling. He's been hitting the ball hard. I noticed that too. He's having a really good season with his expected stats, but I want to say Monday and then yesterday he started getting some blue pits. Unfortunately, I didn't see him in the clubhouse yesterday, but I was going to go up to him and I was going to say those are going to hurt your expected stats, man. Those blue pits. But finally a little luck going his way, but he's also hitting the ball hard. He's Ian Happ in the sense that he's going to get killed by a fan base that just like seems to, I don't want to throw, I hate doing that all of the fans, but there's a lot of angst about Ian Happ often over the course of a season because he is streaky. He's a streaky player. But and then he'll talk about expected stats, but he's about to get he's this hot streak is getting close to his overall numbers that he puts up every year now. He's turned we've talked about this for years now, but really impressive what he's done with his career. He's turned himself into this what are you going to get from him year in and year out to like, okay, here are the stats he's going to put up year in and year out. Like now this is going to be like a 4th year in a row where it's kind of like Ian Happ stats. Like this is what he does. He's at 112 weighted runs created plus, which is a little low, but starting in 22, it's 122, 119, 121. Right now it's 112. If the hot streak continues, that's great. Lowest strikeout rate of his career. A lot of things going well for him. What was he talking about on the road there, Patrick?
Well, first, I talked to him the first day in San Francisco about how you're the only guy around since 2018, from 2018. So you saw how the Brewers caught you guys and that it is possible. And he said, of course, you play for a division until you can't anymore. And then he wound up getting swept in 3 games. So he was sort of jokingly, said, like, get out of here. With that line of questioning that somehow I brought in bad mojo into the clubhouse. And then, I asked him at the end of the road trip, we were in Coors Field there, and, he is always so self-contained when he gives these answers. He can sound very detached, but you shouldn't confuse that for a lack of care. And I just kind of asked him about that of, this process that he always talks about. He acknowledged that it's really easy when you look at the actual numbers to get frustrated and try to change things. And he said, quote, "Throughout my career, I've learned the only thing that you can trust every day is the process. That's all you got. All you have is today and the ability to go do your routine and kind of live it one pitch at a time." And then he explained how if you look at that underlying data and you can be good with the fact that you're not striking out as much, you're still walking, you're hitting the ball hard and hitting it in the air, those are things you can control. And quote, "And if I can be okay with that, it should show up over the course of 600, 700 at-bats. That's the only way you can make it through this game without driving yourself completely mad." And I love that end quote because it's a good lesson. It sums up, what he's thinking. I think there's a strong dynamic of that within the team. I don't think you can have 26 Ian Happs on your team. Like that would not, just would not work in terms of kind of the thought process and the day-to-day mentality. I think that's why when Justin Steele, maybe it was last year, kind of yelling in the dugout, like, wake up or whatever it was. And there was an F-bomb thrown in there. Like, that's why that resonated, because this team is sort of detached, process-oriented, professional, calm, composed. Those are all great things. But when things are not going well, there are times where you feel that sort of fan angst, and Ian is not the guy who's going to light everyone up and rip everyone and give huge speeches, but he is someone who appreciates being a Cub. He showed that by the contract extension he signed. He's developed a lot of local, genuine connections here. I think as you have Sahadev, if you've talked to him, he really gets the big picture in terms of playing in Chicago and Wrigley Field and enjoying the bleacher creatures out there. So, it takes all different types, I think, is kind of my point, and that he has been, a good player for several years now. It's just that he's been stuck in this in-between phase with the Cubs, that they haven't been going to the playoffs every year. And so he's the one who's kind of been around for several years now of either underperformance or kind of waiting for the next thing. And that's why if they clinch, I think Ian Happ is one of those guys you just want to see the reaction and the release after kind of building towards this next phase of the Cubs.
Yeah, I always wonder when guys have like these good expected stats, like what direction is it going to go? With Ian, it's like, okay, you can kind of trust, like he can fall back on those numbers. Those numbers almost comfort him, while others may have no clue that they exist or not, or like start to tinker or overthink things. He'll just be like, it's going to come. I'm doing the right things. I respect that. I think that's important to have on your team, and to have like this kind of steady presence. All right. Now let's turn it over to Alana Rizzo for our Northside Territory pick.
Hey, Sahadev and Patrick, our Northside territory lock is the NLCS. We are taking the NL Central at plus 210. The Central has better odds than the East, and the Cubs have a 571 winning percentage, which is higher than the Padres or the Dodgers currently. Let's lock this in and get that win.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL to unlock Ghost Leg, the promotion that makes one bad leg disappear and pays you out in real cash. Ghost your losses. Get your payout. In partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
All right, Patrick, we have a circle of trust question with the bullpen from Jim Sellinger. Which bullpen arms are in Craig's circle of trust? Keller, Thielbar, Kittredge, Palencia, and who? Assad, maybe? Well, Assad's going to be starting for a little bit, I think, here. I don't think they're going to, we'll see what happens when Tyone comes back, who gets moved out of the rotation. I think, look, I think you named four of them. I think Pomerantz is there. Pomerantz had a little hiccup. I know he gave up the home run on Wednesday night. Look, he was put into a pretty tough situation too. Like Ben Brown, who we'll get to in a little bit, needed to do a better job, and he didn't. And then Pomerantz made a bad pitch. He made a bad pitch to Ha-Seong Kim, and he punished the pitch. But he's been really good over he had that hiccup, I think, at some point in July and basically in August. And since he's barely given up anything. I think his velocity, I was concerned about that because it dipped in July. It seems like it's back. I think you have, when you have two lefties like that in Thielbar, when you have Keller and Kittredge, and then you have Palencia. Palencia is looking shaky. I like that he bounces back. I like that when it gets tough, he seems to push through. He's going to give up runs. He couldn't. It was it was almost like an insane run there for a little bit. I think that's okay. And then there are I don't want to talk about all of these guys just yet, but let's talk about Ben Brown in a moment, and then I think there's another guy that we want to talk about. But I want to talk about this, Patrick, real quickly, because I'm a Brad Keller guy. Yes. He had that hiccup. He looked bad before the All-Star break. Remember that? Not looking so hot, looking like, this is ending. Since then, since the All-Star break, he went and I talked to him after the break. He went to, I can't remember the name of the place that he goes to, but he goes to a place, I believe, in Atlanta.
Tread,
is it Tread? No. He has a different one. He hasn't given up a run. 19 and a third innings, 0 runs allowed, 3 hits allowed, 3 hits since the All-Star break. He's striking out guys at a 33.8% rate. He had a couple walks last time out that kind of bumped it up a little bit, but it's a respectable 8.8% walk rate. He is a stud on the season. It's the numbers are insane. You got to give him a ton of credit. And I think on the road, Counsell had some pretty big praise for him, right?
Oh, yes. The Unsung Hero Award or something like that. I think that was what Craig went to. No doubt Keller's been awesome. A very under the radar minor league signing that probably got the appropriate amount of attention at the time because they just throw a lot of stuff against the wall and see what sticks. But I think certainly he's in that circle of trust. I mean, Thielbar, another kind of out of nowhere guy, to be honest. Palencia, it's been a kind of a slow build here with the Cubs. I think to Jim's question, I need to kind of calibrate how I'm thinking about this as well, because the last sort of extended playoff run that I really remember covering was 2016, when it was sort of that season was starting pitcher goes 7, maybe
Yeah, yeah.
Strop, and then Rondon or Chapman. And then obviously in the playoffs, it was very much just they got great starting. What was it? Kyle Hendricks going 7 2/3 or whatever. And
Yeah,
you had
straight to Chapman.
Chapman in the World Series just throwing a ridiculous amount of pitches. I think what you're going to see is this is why Craig Counsell became the highest paid manager in baseball. This is why he talks about outgetters and innings puzzles. It's okay, who's available today? How can we match up our strengths against their weaknesses? And so I don't know if it'll be as clearly defined between bullpen and reliever arms, meaning maybe Assad gives them another look out of the bullpen. Maybe Jamison Tyone does at certain points. I think the depth of the bullpen, I don't think they have like when the Padres loaded up on relievers in the past couple of deadlines, like they had some pretty there's that wow factor out of their bullpen. I don't think the Cubs really have that, but I think if you look at a playoff pitching staff 1 through 13, it should be pretty solid, and then it's up to them to match them up and for those players to go out and perform.
Yeah, here's the next question: why is Ben Brown still on the roster from No Fly Zone? He's not being very nice and mincing words there. That's fine, I get it. Especially after I went and looked. He hasn't had like a good outing, like a clean outing in a really long time. Granted, he was starting there and he pitches multiple innings every single time out, but I mean, even as a reliever, like it's been a while since he's had a clean outing. And these last 2 outings, I think, have really frustrated the fan base. He's on the roster because they need arms. They need, you're trying to max. This guy has amazing stuff. This guy, the potential is really high with Ben Brown. I thought he could play up in the bullpen. I thought maybe just these short bursts would allow him to not overthink the starts and the outings, and he could just go out there and just like the nasty curveball, high 90s fastball. It would lead to great success. It's not working out right now, and he's putting them in bad situations. I believe it was him in Colorado that gave up some runs and made that blowout too close for comfort, or helped make it too close for comfort. It was him. It's a 1-0 game on Wednesday. That's frankly, yes, if Wednesday's game is on the offense, but he put Drew Pomeranz in a difficult situation, and he couldn't get. I don't think he had a clean inning. Even his first inning, a lot of 3-ball counts. He doesn't look as crisp. There are times when he comes out there and it's just like, whew, this guy's nasty. I haven't seen that in a little bit. I think that's the quick answer. I will say that there are going to be moves coming. Jamison Tyone will be back soon. And then Michael Soroka, I think, is going to be pretty big for this team down the stretch. I know fans just haven't seen him, so they don't know how good he can be. I think he could be a really important piece for this team over the final few weeks, and we'll see what more.
Yeah, circling back to the previous question, I think it's Soroka could be a guy you could use to try and go, maybe not in a playoff game, but in September, go one time through a lineup. I forgot to add Colin Ray to that. Outgetter innings puzzle, and the line that's sort of blurred between the rotation and the bullpen in the playoffs. Now, the Brewers did not include Ray on their playoff roster last year. We'll see if he can sustain this all the way through September and October. And I feel like sort of unfairly with Ray, like every time he has a bad outing, it's like, oh, like, is this it? Like, is he kind of, reached his limits? And he's been a really nice part of this team. And I think day to day too, just his demeanor, his professionalism. I think that matters. And with Brown, I think it's just the expectations at the beginning of this year were just so high. Maybe they were out of proportion. Maybe they were also reasonable because we've seen these flashes of him just being awesome. And I think with Ben Brown, it's probably more of an offseason question of like, how does he reset? They probably don't trade him because his value is low, but he was someone who not that long ago would have been a super interesting change of scenery guy, and we'll see kind of where the Cubs go with that.
Yeah, and quickly on Soroka, he had a 39% strikeout rate as a reliever last year in 36 innings, 2.75 ERA. He talked Wednesday, maybe in pregame Tuesday. I don't know. The days all blend together. But the velocity's back to what it was. I've talked to some people about it. They focused in on some very specific things, and they've been talking to him before he even got hurt. And now that once he got hurt, they really had time to hone in on some of these mechanical things, and they feel like they found some things with him, and maybe they have. I think, chicken or the egg. What was he hurting and it caused the mechanics to change, or did they just naturally change over time? Because that happens a lot, and nobody addressed it, and it led to the injury. Who knows? Either way, he's feeling good. When he comes back, I would keep an eye on him. I would not dismiss that return. I think he's going to, especially if that velocity is mid-90s. I think he can be a really important piece. Him and Aaron Savali looked good. It's one outing. I'm not going to take too much away from it yet, but he looked good. You need stuff like that. That's why when we get back to the original question, why is Ben Brown still on the roster? You're trying to piece together 27 outs. You are trying to not run Brad Keller and Caleb Thielbar and Andrew Kittredge into the ground. So you got to try and use these other guys, and Ben Brown just hasn't had the impact that we thought he would. But I think there are other guys, and Soroka's a name that I would watch. All right, let's take a quick break and come back with the final question.
We're throwing a curveball at you this week for our Arena Club segment, as AJ has opened up a Pokemon slap pack.
Is that how you say it?
Pokemon slap pack. Pokemon. Don't ask me to say what that card is, but what you doing with that card?
I already sold it. Are you kidding me?
Back, baby.
I bought it, and then I got more money than I paid for the pack, so I sold it straight back.
You bought it for
$250.
You sold it for
$299.
And you can go get yourself something that you maybe know how to pronounce.
Yes, or know what it is. I just did it because I saw certain people opening Pokemon, and they were making money, and guess what? I got lucky. Made money off of it too.
Exactly. But of course, if you're into sports cards, that is something that you can find a ton of on the Arena Club Marketplace. Buy, sell, slab pack, trade. 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase can be had at arenaclub.com/foul and use the code FOUL. That's arenaclub.com/foul and use code FOUL.
All right, Patrick, our buddy Blue Line Theology is back. And you know why I included this. Like, it's very obvious.
Yes.
He says, fine, Sahadev was correct about Happ for now. Well, first of all, for now is all that matters, because I'm not saying Happ's going to be good forever. All I'm saying is that Happ was doing well, and you can't take him out of the lineup. If he starts struggling, hey, I understand. You try something different. But thank you for acknowledging me being right, Blue Line Theology. But here's his question. What did the 2025 Cubs get out of the Bellinger trade? Was that money ever going to be spent in 25? Oh, we're going back to the Bellinger trade. Look, that money should have been spent. And I think at the time, you and I, Patrick, we both thought it was going to be spent. And we said, if it's not, we're going to have some thoughts on that. And I think we did. I think we were pretty critical of them, and I will continue to be critical of them because they don't act like a big market team. They don't use their financial might as a cudgel against the rest of the league, and they absolutely should. Or do they spend more to the NL Central? Yes. Do they spend what you think the Chicago Cubs should spend? Should they be a top 5-ish, top 7-ish maybe payroll? Yeah, I think they should be, and they're not. So that money wasn't spent. It was nearly spent on Alex Bregman. but ultimately it wasn't, and they didn't spend that money. And yeah, Blue Line Theology had some names that he wanted here, where that money could have been spent. Look, it could have been spent in a lot of different ways, and could have helped this team. It wasn't, and that's where they are right now, and that's just kind of the philosophy of this ownership group right now. They're not going to spend at, it's not even Mets and Dodgers level, Phillies, Padres. Who else spent more? Diamondbacks, right? Diamondbacks spent more.
They're
this
kind of
year,
around the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, they're like in the teens or in the tens. Like they're not even top 10 in payroll, and that's something that I think we all can point to and say like that. They're winning. Maybe that's all that matters. But you have holes on the roster that could have been filled.
Yeah, this is clearly a salary dump. Like at the time, it was kind of making room for Tucker and Bellinger to have a place to play. Blah blah blah. I don't know if Bellinger would have had this season at Wrigley Field, given how it's played for left-handed hitters and how well his game fits Yankee Stadium. But look, a 4.3 WAR player, 27 homers, 86 RBIs, 129 OPS plus, an ability to play multiple positions. The Cubs would say, well, look, that contract was underwater. That's why he didn't opt out. I don't know. I just think it's hard to find legit everyday major league players. And so when you have one under contract, you shouldn't just be giving them away for nothing. And that's basically what happened. The pitcher they got, did he even appear in a game for the Cubs? I can't remember.
I think he was DFA'd. I think he was DFA'd beforehand. I don't think he ever played for the Cubs.
I mean, just a total non-factor. Like, I think if you were a different organization, you'd hold on to Bellinger. You'd kind of try to make it work. You'd trade him somewhere for something. I don't know. But clearly the Cubs can say whatever they want in the offseason. There's always sort of the, what's next? It was you're looking at the payroll on opening day, but, look at our overall spend on baseball operations. And then it's, the trade deadline will give us some flexibility. And we all know how that worked out at the trade deadline. The Cubs blew us all away at the trade deadline with what they did. This idea of, maybe you're not trading high-level prospects because you're taking on more money in contracts, or maybe there's a great player who's attached to a player with an underwater contract. Whatever the rhetoric was, I'm glad this question came up because it kind of puts a bow on it. Like, it was a salary dump trade, the same way the Yu Darvish trade was a salary dump trade. Now, Owen Casey might wind up being a very good player over the next several years, but it's not his fault, but he was super young, and he's the only guy from that Darvish trade who has emerged, but that was a salary dump trade. And maybe the Cubs salvage it by getting a lot out of Owen Casey, which is possible. I mean, he's been awesome in the minors, has a lot of things going for him. Once he gets an extended opportunity in the majors, maybe he is the right fielder of the future. But Bellinger, Darvish, for a huge major market franchise to have two just glaring salary dumps like that in a relatively short period of franchise history, it is a bad look for a team that kind of brags about having the biggest season ticket holder base in baseball. I think that's what our buddy John Greenberg had in The Athletic, and just we see the crowds at Wrigley Field every night. It doesn't really matter who they're playing. It helps when the Cubs are really good, no doubt, but I mean, they just fill that place up night after night because of the passion of Cubs fans, and it just doesn't feel like it's reciprocated all the time.
Yeah, I mean, both Darvish and then the DFA or the non-tendering of Schwarber. That
that's a great
offseason
one. Yeah, those three.
It'll
yeah,
go
yeah.
down in history as like one of the worst off seasons, and that's that Jed Hoyer has to take the criticism for it, but it's on like his hand was forced. He was forced to find ways to like cut salary. You wait, even if you need to dump that salary, you wait 6 months and wait till July and trade both those guys, and you're talking about turning the team around a lot quicker in all likelihood. I don't know what you get. Maybe it turns out that KC would have been the best player that they end up getting. You know what I mean? Like maybe they trade for better prospects in July for Darvish, but they don't pan out. But my point is like the value was going to be better in July because it's more than a market of one, because that's what it was. The Padres were taking advantage of teams at that point. They did it with the Rays to get Blake Snell, and they did it to the Cubs because they knew nobody else was willing to spend at that point. It was just bad look, bad timing. Everything was about that was just not good. But yes, good question, Blue Line Theology. That money wasn't spent. I don't know. Like I said, it could have been spent. Bregman would have been the one way, but it was like a special exemption, right? So. So like it wasn't even like we're going to spend this money. It's like here are a couple exemptions that you could make. Alex Bregman is one of them. Like, and then you have permission to spend that money. So yeah, I get the question. I get the frustration. All right, my dog is barking, so that means it's time to wrap this up. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. This is Northside Territory. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. Thanks for listening, everyone.